It's not a ludicrous take.
No.
But there was some erosion in Aaron Rodgers' skill set a year ago. What do you think about what Jones said?
Aaron Rodgers was 36 last year. He's not near the end. He can, could give us 3-4 more years and still play at a really high level. But he was spectacular last year. He threw 4 interceptions on the season, BT.
See, I didn't think he was spectacular.
Well, you know what I mean. As a team, they were spectacular. And when a team is spectacular, you give it to the quarterback. At least you put it on the quarterback.
Well, then why didn't he get a lot of votes last year?
Because the reason why
13-3,
because I'm getting to where James Jones is wrong. So the reality is, as good as they were, and if you're just watching from afar, and they won 13 games, he threw 4 interceptions. You say that's a fantastic season, 26 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards. Who wouldn't want that from their quarterback? And especially if they get to the NFC Championship game. So I mean, of course, Aaron Rodgers had a spectacular season because the team had a spectacular season. But at the end of the day, we all know what really drove the Green Bay Packers last year. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers. It was their run game led by Aaron Jones, and Jamal Williams had some burn there as well as a receiver out of the backfield. So they got it done with Aaron playing smart, clean football, but everybody else contributing as well. They didn't have any superstars at wide receiver, right? I don't think they had a receiver over. Did they have a? I don't think they have a receiver with 1,000 yards.
Adams is pretty good.
I know, but he didn't have 1,000 yards. That's my point.
Because Rodgers wasn't spectacular.
He didn't need to be because it was all on their run game and all on their defense. Yeah. And you look at this team; they were middle of the road. 18th in total yards and 18th in total defense and 15th in scoring. Like they were nothing special. And so if you're nothing special, you're not winning the MVP. It's a great thing to say because Aaron Rodgers has a chip on his shoulder about Jordan Love. Jordan Love's not a threat for at least 2 more years, and especially with no preseason and offseason this year, Jordan Love's not even part of the conversation. And the only reason he's going to play is if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and we hope that doesn't happen because football is better when Aaron is playing.
That's for sure. You know who he was last year?
Who's that?
I think you'll agree with this assessment.
Go ahead.
This comparison. He was Alex Smith. He was Alex Smith. A good athlete.
Oh, wow.
No turnovers. Good completion percentage and 26 touchdowns.
Wow,
that's what he was.
I would say that's harsh, but it's kind of respect. It's like a respect thing. You're steady. You win. You don't cause any problems. You have good team around you. You put the players that you have, whether they're good or not, in better positions to be successful. You win games.
Yep.
I mean, in a sense, that is kind of who he was.
It's not a diss, but listen, you have to.
It'll come off as a diss, even though it's not a diss.
For sure. Listen, you hear, it was Alex Smith. It's a downgrade, because Alex Smith on his best day could never, shine Aaron's shoes on Aaron's best day.
Yeah.
Because from a talent point of view, Aaron's one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time. But
that's right.
We have to acknowledge, and this is where I'm going to disagree. Well, I don't even disagree with you because you're pretty much saying the same thing. Although how we interpret Rodgers last year, maybe we branch off in a little bit of a different direction, I guess. But his last great season was in 2016. That's 3 full years ago, all right? Now, he hasn't had over 4,500 yards since, nor has he had over 26 touchdowns since. That's 3 years. Now, in 2019, just to give people a little point of reference, 2019, there were 12 players who threw for 26 touchdowns or more, okay? So that's what he had. A lot of company, relatively nominal achievement, if you look at the numbers, based on 12 quarterbacks, there's only so many teams. In 2018, same deal. 12 quarterbacks had 26 touchdowns or more. Now, let's branch away from Rodgers for a moment and start throwing at the old dartboard guys who really will be in Rodgers' way to win the MVP. Obviously, Mahomes. Obviously, Lamar Jackson. I would say Deshaun Watson, obviously, if Hopkins was still there. So I won't say obviously, but I'll throw him a little respect. You have to throw, obviously, although not obviously, because he never gets votes.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson should. Drew Brees, Carson Wentz, I believe, is poised for a big bounce back. Matt Ryan. I've already thrown Kyler Murray, on the back end of the MVP race. I expect a big pop. And now consider these names. What if Baker goes bonkers with all that weaponry? What if Dak clicks with McCarthy? Oh, yeah, and CeeDee Lamb. I think Stafford has a really bounce-back season. And, there's Tom Brady. So those are 11 guys.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. There's a lot of competition this year. And, look, you look at Aaron Rodgers from the last few years. One was injury-riddled, so we'll count that one out back in 2017. But 2016 was a spectacular season because who else was scoring for them? Who else was doing the hard work? So last year, yeah, he had 4,000 yards and 26 touchdowns, but part of that is because he didn't have to throw for 40 touchdowns. Aaron Jones had, 20 touchdowns last year, or 16 rushing touchdowns and 20 total, whatever it was. It was a ton. And so the spread has the spread of, influence on this team.
Riches.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's gone away from just the quarterback.
Yeah, but has it gone away because the Packers acknowledge internally he's a different Aaron Rodgers?
No, I think because you go back to the years that they were competing almost in winning a Super Bowl, and it was all of that. It was all Aaron Rodgers in a sense, but that doesn't win. How many times have they been back? They haven't. You can't win with one guy. You need other stars to be able to step up. And look no farther than what we're seeing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Pat Mahomes is fantastic, and he's one of the young icons and maybe the face of the National Football League. He is the face of the National Football League right now, especially with a $500 million contract. So when you look at him, look at who's around him, right? Tyreek Hill is one of the best players in football. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends in football. Chris Jones just got broke off as a D tackle, right? They got great talent around him who are great players. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had that. And so when you look at, the success or lack of success. They've been good. I'm not saying they're not a good team, but the lack of success in the postseason and getting back to a Super Bowl, it's because you can't put it all on one person. You got to have a diversified unit offensively and defensively. The Packers have finally realized that. I mean, and maybe that was a big issue with Mike McCarthy. Oh, hey, Aaron, you figure it out. Well, you're great. Everybody says you're great. You'll figure this thing out. You don't win like that in a team sport.
I don't disagree with that. I'm gonna summarize it this way for you. Because I gave you some numbers that I think paint a pretty interesting picture as to, where he rates statistically. And I'm not saying stats are the end-all, be-all, but let's face it, they're how we're measured and how they're measured. I mean, everything is there's an orientation with numbers. I mean, what does a TV show generate? What does a radio show generate? What is a quarterback's QBR? There's numbers for a reason. I'm not saying they're always perfect, but they're there for a reason. Okay, so I don't feel – let me backtrack. When I watched Aaron Rodgers in his prime, I felt every Sunday I was getting a real hearty piece of Michael Jordan pie, a little sliver of Tiger Woods, a little sliver of Gretzky in his prime, or Trout, or a young A-Rod. I mean,
yeah, you're not seeing that now.
Maybe the one throw a week, the little flashback.
Yeah.
I don't see MJ, breaking off, 50 on somebody or going double nickel against the Knicks or Gretzky basically going for 200 points in a season or Mike Trout maybe being as great as Willie Mays and Babe Ruth. I don't see that.
No. And look, Aaron Rodgers is not going to win the MVP in 2020. It's not going to happen.
No, I know, but is he still great?
Their team isn't set up for him to win an MVP. They're not winning because of him.
But is he still great?
Is he still great?
Great.
He's still really damn good.
That's not what I asked. Is he still great?
But I'm not going to disparage one of the great players of our generation by saying he's not great anymore.
Well, but
he's not. But it's not. That's not the point. He doesn't need to be. He needed to be great for a lot of these years because who else was doing it for them? I think they've gotten smart. Team building is one of the most important components of a championship DNA in the NFL, and it's not just get a great quarterback. We fall into this cliche, and it's a stupid one. Oh, it's a quarterback league. Of course it is. Of course you need a good quarterback, but you don't need a world beater to win the Super Bowl. You just need somebody who's not going to make mistakes, and you have to have good teams around them, good skill position players, dynamic skill position players, a defense that can hold up and make stops when you need to. That's how the Pats did it. Tom Brady's been good. He had a couple MVP seasons, but he hasn't been a world beater every year that they've won a Super Bowl. And so I think that the template is talked about too much. Focusing on quarterbacks, when in reality, when you start to build a solid team, that's when you get success, like the Packers had last year and get into the NFC Championship game.
I don't disagree.
And even then, they were still deficient because they got run through against the 49ers. You know what I mean?
It wasn't
even a game.
Matchup.
It wasn't even a game.
Yeah, listen, Tiki, I don't disagree with anything you just said, but that's a different, at least a different branch of the tree.
Yeah.
You think about how we started the show. James Jones played with Rodgers, played the NFL.
Yeah.
Good broadcaster. Says he's going to win the MVP. All right, let's have the discussion. I ripped through 11 names that I think are as viable, or in some cases far more viable. Some I'm obviously extrapolating a lot from last year and anticipating more growth this year, like Murray and maybe Baker Mayfield with a different coach, whatever. But the point remains. Russell Wilson, if we want to talk about how all those years Aaron Rodgers had deficiencies around him, Russell Wilson's offensive line is perennially among the worst in football.
True.
DK Metcalf, popped a little surprisingly because he was thought to be a freak specimen but not a refined receiver.
Yep.
He is. He made Baldwin into a star. Really a myriad running backs.
But let's
not Beast. And look, that's not enough for me. An MVP just does it, independent of what's around him.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing. Just as an aside with Russell Wilson, he also had some great defenses around him those years he was going deep into the postseason and getting to the Super Bowl, right? Now, but this question is about Aaron Rodgers and the MVP. And James Jones is putting this pressure, or at least we're having this conversation from his perspective, on Aaron Rodgers to win an MVP, because that just sounds good. Hey, go win an MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and you'll get right back to the Super Bowl. Second year in Matt LaFleur's system. What can go wrong? But the reality is, Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to win an MVP for them to be good. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to win an MVP if they are going to stay good. It's going to be a combination of their run game and an improved defense and things of that nature. That's what matters if you're in Green Bay right now. Yeah, we love Aaron Rodgers. We love talking about the individual stars. But at this point, it's not about Aaron Rodgers anymore.
Let me read something for you, and then I have a question for you. Okay?
Go ahead.
Let's see. This is about Russell, but it's going to tie into something else. So, Wilson, since he entered the league back in 2012, never missed a game. He's won 86 times. Only Brady's won more in that span. And he's thrown for the 7th most yards and the 5th most touchdowns. Of all the quarterbacks since 2012, only Cam has rushed for more yards. All right? And then since 2017, his greatness has been further magnified. Is there a possibility that Russell Wilson is halfway home to a career that ultimately will be better than Aaron Rodgers? I believe the answer could be very easily yes, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm going to defer to you. Well, at least not defer, because I believe it's Russell, or it could be. But I do want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting one. Because what are we looking at ultimately?
Winning and stats.
When it's all said and done.
Winning and stats.
Yeah, so it comes down to winning and statistics. But which one has more weight? Because Russell Wilson is the perennial winner, but he's never won an MVP. And when we talk about him in the MVP, it's like, yeah, he's there, but he's he's third or fourth. He's in the conversation. Whereas Aaron Rodgers has won an MVP, and he's won a Super Bowl, just like Russell Wilson has as well. But we always kind of want to position him as the MVP type player, because he's always had this skill set that we revered and we lionize and we champion about him. But I think, and I'll go back to this point, if Aaron Rodgers wins the MVP, I don't think the Packers are as good as they were last year. It's just a reality of the football build, of how this team is built. So if he's winning MVPs, then something's gone wrong with the Green Bay Packers. And they're likely not competing for a Super Bowl like they were last year.
I think it's amazing how overlooked Russell Wilson has been. It's the guy's been running for his life and making these freak circus throws throws. You know, Mahomes done it for a year or two. Russell Wilson's been doing it since 2012. I mean, you know, against the grain, 50 yards, you know, on a clothesline without barely looking, off his back foot to the corner of the end zone. I mean, the guy is just, he's a magician. He plays every week. He wins. Let's face it, if they had a quarterback that was 80% of Russell Wilson, which is a pretty hefty number, 80%, you know, not terrible score to test, 80%, all right, got an 80, whatever. 80% of Russell Wilson, they'd be 7-9 every year. That's how much he elevates them, Russell Wilson.
That's right.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.